What's up everybody and welcome to the Gooner channel. And today's video I'm going to be covering the transfer twist in the deal that was going to be What's up everybody and welcome to the Gooner channel. And today news broke that there is a apparent huge twist in the transfer saga linking Declan Rice with Arsenal this summer. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But before I do that, one thing that's come out of this is that obviously he's not the only defensive midfielder we've been interested in. In fact, we tabled a significant bid for Moises Caicedo of Brighton in January, and it was only the failure to capture him which led to us signing Jorginho as a sort of emergency acquisition. But that's turned out to be a great bit of business, and now it looks like Jorginho is going to be an ever-present until the end of the season, having had a fantastic performance against Chelsea and an even better performance against Newcastle. But defensive midfield is a position that we have for a little while now needed to bring someone in, and it's clear that that's the intention of Arsenal Football Club and Arteta. What I've been surprised by is just how divisive this has been. I obviously have my preference, and I'm sure you do as well. I don't think there's many people sitting on the fence. But the question I'm asking today, and I'd love your comments on this, which is the better player, Declan Rice or Moises Caicedo? Well, let's start with Declan Rice. Declan Rice is a player who has obviously been very heavily linked with Arsenal, and I've done videos on this. Apart from just appearing at Gabriel Jesus' birthday party, there has been a lot of speculation that Declan Rice is looking to play Champions League football, and with only a year left on his contract this summer, West Ham have done everything they can to extend that, and they have now admitted defeat, and it looks like David Moyes came out today and said it's now looking likely that Declan will leave. Not that they want him to, but they will accept that. Now, the story has come out of West Ham and unravelled. First of all, they were very confident he was going to be signing an extension, that he was West Ham through and through, and they were doing everything they could to convince him. Later on, they came out and said that if he were to be sold, they would only accept bids from a Champions League team, and the offers would be around £120 million. Now, that is a sizable chunk of money, particularly when you think that Jude Bellingham is going for only just a little bit more than that. So certainly there seems to be an intention to price everybody out of the market, but the more it looks like Declan will leave for free in a year's time anyway, the harder it's going to be for them to turn down a serious offer. So whether or not the final amount that you end up paying for Declan Rice is 120 mil or not is not a given. It's a negotiation process. Moises Caicedo, similarly though, we had an offer for 80 million knocked back. And, you know, sources inside Brighton have suggested they think he's worth 120 to 140. We are dealing with a hugely inflated transfer market at the moment, particularly in this position. And most teams are looking to see if they can get something around the Jude Bellingham amount. After all, Jude Bellingham is only 19 years old. It's hard to say, but look, if the simple question is we could get Moises Caicedo for 80 and it would be 50% more to get Declan Rice, I would count that in the analysis of the two. What I'm instead going to do is rely on statistics. Obviously, football is about more than just statistics, and I can already hear you shouting on the screen, you know, statistics prove whatever you want them to. But there are metrics that are counted as, you know, this is how we measure football. Who team that scores the most goals wins, etc., etc. So what I've done is I've put together a list of the 7 best defensive midfielders in the Premier League at the moment, and I've compared them across similar metrics to see which ones stand out. Now, I've left out Højbjerg, and frankly, for the only reason being that his tackles, one of the significant statistics I'm looking at is tackles attempted and tackles successful. And Højbjerg is just having a terrible season for that. Similarly, Fabinho. So the 7 midfielders that I am looking at comparing, just to give context in the comparison between Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo, are obviously Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo. Then there's the gold standard of defensive midfielders, in my opinion, Rodri at Manchester City, who is, of course, playing in a fantastic team, and you will see that affecting his statistics. But, you know, I think to put it really simply, if we could sign only one of Moises Caicedo, Declan Rice or Rodri, I would be very seriously looking to sign Rodri. That's not possible. It's not going to happen. So we're not going to be getting him. But he does stand out. Now, what's really interesting is the other... Sorry, but he does stand out. The other players I'm looking at are Thomas Partey, Douglas Luiz, Guimaraes of Newcastle, and Casemiro of Manchester United. Now, Casemiro, obviously, alongside Cruz and Modric in that midfield for Real Madrid. Playing alongside those two might have made him look a little bit less technically gifted than he really is. But certainly, Man United fans have been bleating on just about how successful they've been with him in there. And you certainly notice a difference when he's not playing. So, let's have a look at those 7 players and compare their performances over this Premier League season. And before I go on any further, I also just want to say it is literally this season I'm comparing. One of the things that I think you have to accept is that Declan Rice has been consistent for 5 years. Moises Caicedo for a year and a half. So I think there is a point here, but again, just in objective terms, statistically speaking, I'm looking only at 22-23. Now, the first thing that jumps off the page when you're comparing statistics is whoever you get, you want them to be an ever-present, really. You don't want to be switching this position a great deal. And one of the problems we've had with Thomas Partey is that until this season, he's found it very difficult to play over 26 games. Declan Rice, on the other hand, very much more consistent in the last 5 years, but this season has only missed 1 match. Frustratingly, it was the West Ham Man City game, because I thought that there might be a chance West Ham could get something out of that game, and without him in there, they held on very well for the first half, but fell apart for them pretty well. He has played 34 games, missed the 1 game, obviously, and has never been substituted. So he is miles ahead with 3,318 minutes played. And the next nearest to him is Rodri with 2,930, having played 32 games and come on as a substitute in 1 game. Now, at a part of the pitch where really defensive midfielders don't get involved so much, but Graham Souness did go on record and say that he thought Declan Rice's goal contribution should be improved. Almost immediately after that Declan Rice scored that wonder goal in the Conference League. I always forget whether it's Confederations or Conference League. So that's not me belittling it. I really hope West Ham go on and beat AZ in the semi-finals and go through and win that. European football is European football. It's not an Arsenal fan's place to be picking and choosing in that. However, goal contributions is something you don't really expect from DMs. There is an exception here, and that is that Douglas Luiz has scored 4 goals. But, you know, he does typically play up the pitch, and one of them, I think, came straight from a corner. So, a bit of freak there. None of these players are really weighing in with a lot of goals. Declan Rice has 3, Douglas Luiz has 4, Partey has 3, Guimaraes has 3. You'd expect it from him. Again, he does play further up. But what's interesting is that shots, Rodri is miles ahead with shots. So he has 49 shots this season, of which 13 were on target. The next best performer here is Rice with 33 shots, of which 8 on target. But none of these guys are being looked at for their ability to contribute goals. Where they're really being looked at is how well they can disrupt the game, how well they can block shots, how well they can intercept. And a lot of this comes under tackling. So looking at tackles attempted, a clear winner in this field. Absolutely miles ahead of anyone else in attempting 116 tackles with 93 successful is Moises Caicedo. A really big part of defending that back line from attack. He has been one of the reasons that Brighton have been able to push forward and from a strong base, defending really well, but scoring those goals. Now, 80% of his tackles are completed, or successful, I should say. And that's slightly less than Declan Rice's. But as I said, number of tackles attempted, Moises Caicedo's miles ahead. Even of the next best one is Casemiro. And what really stands out for Casemiro is that he's only actually successfully tackling 70% of the time. He's flinging himself about a bit. Which takes me to discipline. Only one player, there's only 3 red cards amongst all these 7 players, and 2 of them have gone to Casemiro. 1 of them went to Douglas Luiz. Yellow cards, the average is about 6. Moises Caicedo has 9, and Declan Rice only 5. Passes. This is where it gets really interesting. Rodri is miles ahead of anyone, completing 91% of his passes, and with a pass every 1.1 minute. When you compare that to every 2 minutes for Declan Rice and every 1.6 minutes for Moises Caicedo. Moises Caicedo, in terms of passing and tackling, is outperforming Declan Rice. And that would give weight to the idea that Declan Rice is not playing as well as Moises Caicedo. Now, there is the obvious factor that one's playing in a team which is being threatened by relegation, or was until quite recently. I think they're safe now. And the other is flying high, chasing potentially Champions League football. So it's quite obvious that just looking at that, you could say Declan Rice has been surrounded by less competent football than Moises Caicedo, and that could account for the differences. But you can also look at this the other way, and those of you who think Caicedo is a better player have these statistics to base that on. Another really important part of being a defensive midfielder, though, is, and one of the areas I think that Declan Rice, when I watch him, really stands out, is ability to read the game. And ability to read the game can be measured in interceptions, where he is far ahead of Moises Caicedo. He has 62 interceptions to 47. But then there's also that kind of games where you have to be really close to your, you may be man marking, you may be really close to a opposition player. Rice has won 156 duels and lost 112. Moises Caicedo has won 192 and lost 136. Declan Rice has not committed an error which has led to a goal. Moises Caicedo has one error which led to a goal. Now, the statistics, therefore, are pretty similar. There are not such massive differences that you would automatically pick one over the other. And I'm sure there are much more statistics we could go into, much more depth in terms of blocked shots, in terms of percentage of time on the ball, key passes versus just passes. But all other things being equal, statistically, it's very hard to draw a definitive difference between these two. And this is where what I was saying earlier really comes in. Moises Caicedo has had a great season. Declan Rice has had a great 5 seasons. Declan Rice has more authority and leadership than Moises Caicedo. Declan Rice would arguably fit the Arsenal format slightly better. All of these things, though, I'm going to leave up to you to decide. The stats don't make it easy to pick one from the other. Now, what is this big transfer twist that I spoke about earlier? It seems now that the transfer to Arsenal of Declan Rice has been called off by Arsenal. And the reason for that is they fear they're in danger of being priced out. But that twist has been reported today. I smell a bit of a rat. We are entering the silly season. Transfer sagas are conjured up in journalists' minds very often. And it seems like this story about Arsenal pulling out, whilst I cannot find any sources from Arsenal that will even say they're going for Declan Rice. So they're not likely to do a Liverpool with Bellingham and say that, look, we're no longer interested, because they've never officially been interested. And the bid that they did make, that we are aware of, was Caicedo. So there is an element here that maybe Caicedo's always been first on the list. The idea, though, that they're pulling out because competition is too great can only mean one thing. Because if West Ham are only going to sell Declan Rice to a Champions League team, that may or may not be Man United at the moment. Man United are interested in Declan Rice. Man City, I've heard nothing. Of all the teams that probably do need Declan Rice, Man City, I just don't think with Rodri in there, are the team that need him. And he's absolutely adamant that he wants to play in a team that could win things. So that would be a big pull to go to Man City. I don't think that if Man City wanted him, I don't think there really would be a lot of battle in this. They certainly can afford to pay the money, or at least we think they can. But there's nothing that's come out of Man City that says they're interested. And of course, they have already got Rodri. Man United may or may not be in the Champions League. Liverpool may or may not be in the Champions League. But here's the thing. If it's Liverpool that are going after him, if Liverpool are prepared to pay 120 million and get into a transfer battle, why didn't they stay in the race to sign Jude Bellingham? Jude Bellingham isn't that much more. Declan Rice wages are going to be considerably less. There's not really the probability that he's going to hit the 300, 400,000, but clearly he's going to want the best he can get. Chelsea are not going to be playing in Europe at all, and let's face it, they have to move some players out, and the idea of putting up 120 million with Enzo Fernandez kind of occupying that position for them at the moment. And just on that, I didn't compare him just because it hasn't been enough games to do a full comparison. But I think the only teams, therefore, left in this potentially are Newcastle, who will be playing Champions League. Maybe they will put up 120 million. Maybe it's going to come down to Newcastle being the only team that put up 120 million. But if City aren't coming in, if Man United aren't going to be coming in because they already have Casemiro, they already have players they need to buy, they have lots of positions they need to cover, where is the competition that's going to drive the price up for Declan Rice to 120 million? The twist in the tail here, I think, is that Arsenal are not pulling out, but they may be saying they're pulling out because that's what you do. Okay, we're not going to pay you 120 million for Declan Rice. We'll focus on Moises Caicedo. Who is going to buy Declan Rice for 120 million? I would love to know what you think about this. I'm really fascinated by the division. I think we can agree. I think we should all be able to agree that these are both fantastic players. As I said before, please leave your comments. Let me know what you think. I am really interested, but I do think one of these two players is coming to Arsenal. And in a world where Stan Kroenke realises what a diamond opportunity we have to build a team that can really challenge on all fronts, he will fund the signing of both. I think that's important because I think Thomas Partey is on his way out. I think a lot of the speculation about Granit Xhaka leaving is nonsense as well. But, you know, he's in advancing years. We probably need two players in that position. So wouldn't it be fantastic if we get Moises Caicedo and Declan Rice? If that's not possible, though, I personally would go for Declan Rice. He's proven it over 5 years. He's an England international. He has leadership qualities. They're both versatile. They both play in defence and in midfield. But Declan Rice, I think, has not been given a platform yet to show what he can do further up the pitch. And I think that coming in to either replace Thomas Partey or Granit Xhaka, he can play 6 or 8. I think he's a perfect summer signing for Arsenal. It may just take us a little bit longer, and I don't think this deal is going to get done quickly because I think West Ham will do everything they can to try and get silly money. But in the end, Declan Rice should be sold for between 80 to 100 million and possible add-ons. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. If you haven't yet and you've watched all the way to this point, I'm going to put a couple of videos up that I think you'll really enjoy. They're tailor-made for you based on what else you've liked. And if you could just hit subscribe, that would do me a massive favour. Lots of love.